Welcome to the Science for Sport podcast, where we dive into stories and insights that drive peak performance. Join us as we uncover the secrets behind the science of success. Here's your host, Richard Graves.
Hello and welcome to the Science for Sport podcast with me, Richard Graves. This week, we're hearing from the Chief Executive and co-founder of Perch, Jacob Rothman. Perch is an organisation which specialises in athlete monitoring through its innovative camera-based system that serves to maximise training efficiency within the weight room. Recently acquired by Catapult, one of the global leaders in sports performance analytics. What does this move mean in terms of future possibilities and for integrating their respective technologies? Well, to answer those questions and more, we can hear from Jacob Rothman now.
Unlocking sports science to push the limits of human potential. This is the Science for Sport podcast.
Well, Jacob Rothman, the CEO and co-founder of Perch, it's great to have you join us on this week's podcast.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Now, I was doing some research ahead of our chat today, and one of the things that stood out for me was Perch's mission, which is to maximize every rep, every set, every training moment. That will be music to the ears of both the listeners and viewers of the Science for Sport podcast. But I wonder if you can bring us up to speed as well, because outside of the US, it's fair to say not an awful lot is known necessarily about Perch. So what is it that made it such an attractive proposition that it was then acquired by Catapult, one of the global leaders in sports performance analytics, a little earlier this summer?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not sure how familiar your listeners are with Perch, so I'll kind of start high level. But really, how we like to describe ourselves is we are a weight room platform meant to maximize, as you said, every moment, every rep in the weight room. And what that means is essentially we have three main products that we sell. So we have a planning product. So essentially you can write a full workout program through our product and deliver that to the athletes. We have we call that Plan. We have a product we call Evaluate, which is a jump testing product. Using our hardware, you're able to assess jump height, RSI mod, a variety of different jump assessments and get readiness really quickly. And then we, of course, have what we call Train, which is our velocity-based training product. And all of that entire platform is accessed via our tablet app, but also our hardware, which is a small camera that you attach to any weight rack in a weight room. So an athlete will walk up, they'll log in, and then using our that experience, they'll be able to access their program. They'll be able to do their jump testing. So all through the camera, we're able to capture that information. And then, of course, through that camera-based system, we're able to access their sets, reps, power output, speed, and display that in real time. So the reason we're so attractive, or why Catapult chose to move forward with us, is it comes down to we're able to holistically do everything, solve close to most of the needs that a strength and conditioning coach or sports scientist has in the weight room. And we're able to do that extremely seamlessly. So because we're a camera-based system, there's no tethers and nothing additionally attached to the athlete. The barbell, athlete walks up and they're able to work out like they normally do, and they're able to capture all of this information and serve all of these different use cases, right? From planning to assessing to training. And then we close that feedback loop. So then you're able to plan from the same place in which you're capturing all this other weight room data. And we do that all very seamlessly through that one platform.
Tell us a little bit more, if you can, about this camera-based system, because this is the selling point of your organization, Is it, that makes it different from any other software or device that's currently on the market?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you think about a lot of weight room technology, right, we kind of started as a velocity-based training product. We've since branched out to a few different products. But when you think about typically the way you capture weight data in the weight room, it comes down to wearables, so something you attach to the athlete, the barbell, or a tether-based system. So you'll attach that to the barbell. You pull it, it tells you how fast you're moving, for instance. So we've gone a very different route, which is a camera-based system. And when we first started the company, what we realized was the most important thing to most of these coaches is they really wanted access to this data, but they wanted to do it in a way that didn't detract from the workout. So most of these coaches have, especially if you're looking at the US, so let's say collegiate environment or really any program, you'll have 30 to 60 minutes in the weight room with your guys or girls at once. And the most important thing is you want to be able to train while you're in that. You don't want to be having to fuss with technology. You don't want technology breaking, going down. You don't want anything distracting from the workout. But coaches want access to this data because they also at the same time want to optimize the workouts. They want to ensure that their athletes are lifting the proper amount of load, doing the proper volume. They want to be able to track volume over time. So it's like, how do you marry those two things? You want to access the data, but you don't want it to be obtrusive or distract from the workout. And you need to build a technology that can enable that. So that is that camera-based system, right? It kind of makes your weight rack, your equipment smart. Like athlete walks up, they work out like they normally do, and they have access to all this additional information with really in a couple taps, right? That's as simple and seamless as it is. The technology was developed by us. We were MIT students at the time, so really built, I think, on pretty good education. And we've just honed it over, at this point, we've captured over 500 million reps. So it's all machine learning based. It's all AI. We were doing AI before it was sexy. I guess it's always been sexy, but before it is what it is today. So we've basically trained these algorithms over hundreds of millions of reps to be accurate, reliable, capture everything that's going on in the weight room.
I think I'm right in saying that you played some baseball earlier on in your career, didn't you? And this whole concept came about as a result of an injury I was reading. Is that correct?
I did. Yeah, there are a couple different origin stories. But yeah, I was a baseball player at MIT. I would say student athlete. Like I say, the athlete part is in quotes because I was certainly a student before an athlete at MIT. But it was a couple things. So one, when we first started the company, quantified self movement was really taking off. So I think Catapult was honestly still first coming over to the US when we first started the company around 2016. Catapult's always been a huge brand, but wearable technology, quantifying what's going on in the field, or even things like an Apple Watch or a Fitbit that was quantifying heart rate and steps, that was really taking off. But we wanted to build something that could solve a very similar problem for the weight room, right? We wanted to become the Catapult of the weight room, if you will. And then around that same time, we were ideating on this. I actually herniated a disc in my back, which contributed to shortening my playing career. And I actually hurt myself in the weight room. It's kind of just a freak thing. So that was kind of some personal motivation for myself to help athletes like train smarter, train better, track their progress over time, ideally prevent some injury and optimize their training. Right. And here we are today.
What were some of the early challenges that then you encountered in getting the prototypes ready, validating the hardware, the software to make it a viable proposition?
Yeah. Man, so many different challenges. It's hard to pick just one. Really getting the technology to work was the hardest part to start. I think we were trying to marry this thing, as I mentioned before, of like making something easy to use. But when you're working with professional athletes, it's got to work every time, right? So it can't just work some of the time. It can't miss some reps. It can't give you a bad value. It has to be a premium experience. If not, there's really no point capturing the data or lose athlete buy-in very quickly. So I think it was a long slog of the first few years, just being able to get the technology good enough that coaches were willing to use it and trust it. So that was certainly a big thing. That took us from, we went full time in 2017. It took us about 2 years to get to 2019, which when we first added some of our first clients. So that was big. You then hear about any other startup challenges like access to capital, finding the right people. COVID was certainly a huge wrench that got thrown into things early in our life. So overall, there's a lot of challenges, lots of ups and downs. But when you have a great customer base that believes in you, it's pretty easy to keep going, moving forward.
What was the light bulb moment, the moment that the light switch went on then when things turned from an uphill slog and you're encountering teething problems to the moment you thought, we've got this, and you get the buy-in from clients, from partners, and that level of trust, that faith that goes both ways, you knew it was there?
Yeah. Well, it's always an uphill slog, right? We may have sold the company to Catapult recently, but I think we really have huge initiatives for what we're trying to accomplish. Like we want to impact every athlete in the world, right? And that means we're never going to stop innovating. We're never going to stop being truly hard on ourselves. But I would say the kind of the turning point for us from this was a prototype or nobody believed in us to the man, that we have something here, was probably our first big customer, which is the LSU football team in 2019. So us being US based, like American football, college football, it's a big business here. So LSU, they went on to win the national championship there. And they have been, that coaching staff has been an incredible supporter of ours throughout the years. So obviously being able to support a national championship team is huge. And we did fundamentally change how they trained that year. They were using a product called Tendo as an example, and they were measuring just certain sets of certain workouts, and it's like on a dime they flipped to measuring every single set that they did in the weight room. It didn't matter, and they saw towards the end of the season some of the fastest sprinting speeds on the field, like as they were preparing for the national championship run, which is kind of unheard of because the athletes typically fatigued. So I think it was a great use case for us because we were able to validate what we had been doing and really partner with a pretty incredible organization.
Was that a collaborative effort then, in the sense that you're providing them with the hardware and the software, but they're then giving you feedback, enabling you to tweak it and refine it to make it more user-friendly?
Definitely, especially at that point, right, when we had only had, let's say, a dozen customers at the time, like one customer's feedback, certainly it's one of 12, right, has a huge impact. But we do like to partner with every one of our organizations. It's like I see every single feature request that comes in. I'm working very closely with our engineers and our product team to help prioritize and set a roadmap. So we are an extremely collaborative organization, and I think that's one thing that whenever I visit clients and I ask them how things are going, they're saying, "Oh yeah, product's working great, it's great, but man, the rate at which you guys are innovating, like I love the features that you guys just came out with. Like props to your team for listening and continuing to improve." And that's really why people go with us. So we try to be as collaborative as we can with every one of our customers.
So that effectively sets the ball rolling. You now roll your package out amongst a number of collegiate programs. NFL teams are buying in. If I was a potential client coming to you then, Jacob, today from, as we would call it in the UK, a soccer team, Premier League team, for example, and said, right, I've heard about this technology that you've got, as I try and knock over my microphone here in the studio. I've heard about this technology that you've got. How can you make it work for me? How can I install this system so it works for me and my organization? What would your response be?
Absolutely. It's actually been crazy just in the first, we joined Catapult about 2 months ago now, and we've already seen a lot of EPL and like European football interest, which is pretty awesome. Really, there's no additional thing that needs to work for you, right? Our ethos is we want to maximize every moment in the weight room, and we don't want you to have to change what you're doing in order to do that, right? You don't need to change your program to leverage our technology. So it's as simple as getting our camera system, putting it up in the weight room. You put it on a weight rack, or we can mount to a variety of different equipment, or even be placed on the ground. And then you just have your athletes work out in front of it, and you're able to access real-time data. We do a lot of really cool analytics on the back end, so you don't have to be an expert in velocity-based training or leveraging the data. We're able to really seamlessly track athlete progress over time. We have a lot of really great proprietary metrics that help you understand your athlete's performance, and even do things like we have status scores. So we'll compare an athlete's present-day performance to their historical performance and flag those athletes, pretty similar to what Catapult does, but focusing on the weight room. Right, so it's pretty easy to get up and running because that's how we built the system.
And in layman's terms, then, how does this differ from other technologies we know about? We've spoken to Catapult about Vector 8 and their system that they launched earlier this year. A lot of organizations obviously have the vests with the GPS tags in them. This camera system, does it have to be pre-installed, or as an individual, could I decide I want to do an extra session in the weights room and I can attach these cameras in a bespoke fashion and still get the data I need?
Yeah, it's a great question. Really, it's meant to be like pre-installed, right? So let's say you buy 4 camera systems for your weight room. They're meant to be attached to the weight rack. It's as simple as the attaching mechanism is some Velcro straps, right? So it will literally take a few minutes to get it installed. But the best use case is it kind of becomes part of the equipment. And whenever you work out, you're able to capture this data if you choose to. But if you did want to travel with it, again, super easy to pack it up in one of our cases, take it with you on the road if you want to get access to this data while you're traveling.
Well, I was going to say, is it as easy as me opening my laptop and I can access the data there and then, or will it be married up in some way to a central unit that the organization then has access to?
Yeah, great question. So there's 2 components of the software. So there's a tablet in the weight room, which is what the athletes will interact with when they're lifting. They'll get the real-time feedback there. But then all the data is instantly saved to our cloud services. So we call our dashboard. So it's a web dashboard. So you can be across the world and still log in and access your data. Additionally, because we now have this, what we call plan or programming product, all you need is your computer to write workouts, and then you can deliver those to the athletes. And they can either be in your facility using that tablet, or they could be using a mobile phone. So you don't need to necessarily use our camera systems to get value out of what Perch can provide today.
And I suppose the obvious question as well, since Catapult acquired Perch earlier this summer, for your clients that are already on board, they've bought into the products that you've got on the market now. They have that relationship with you already. So the concern for them, I guess, would be, would any of that change? Equally, when you become part of a larger family such as Catapult, where does the crossover come where you integrate different technologies, different systems to enhance the products that you're making available?
Yeah, that's a great question. There have been some acquisitions in this space in which products have been deprecated, right, or killed, for instance, and there's absolutely no concern of that happening. It's what's really exciting about this to us is Perch was growing very quickly in the US. We have a lot of top tier clients and there's no end in sight, and we continue to innovate. But what Catapult gives us access to is it gives us access to distribution, right, and a fantastic team. So it allows us to get our technology in front of more people. And then ideally it gives us more resources so that we can innovate faster, right? It also gives us more resources so as the company grows, we can scale our support and ensure that every one of our customers is getting the premium experience that they want, right? So overall, we see this as an extremely positive thing for all of our existing customers and new customers. And there was no reason we would have done this except if we saw there being a great cultural fit and a great product fit. To answer your second question, it's hard to say what the exact roadmap is going to hold in the future. I definitely don't want to overpromise anything. But these data sets are extremely collaborative, right? I've been on a few podcasts or hosted a couple webinars with some of our customers, and they've called us the catapult of the weight room, because when you're on the field, you're able to capture literally anything that's going on. And we pride ourselves on the ability to capture all these different streams of data when you're in the weight room, from your programming data to assessment and readiness data to actually what's going on when you're training, and then capturing all that. And I think there's definitely going to be I have a vision of how do you bring these data sets together, and one, from a workflow standpoint, be able to access that data from a one centralized single location, but two, just being able to infer more and gather more insight by having a more holistic and complete view of your athlete's performance and health, right? So there's a lot of opportunity to create value for coaches everywhere.
Well, and to that end, you say that there's a great opportunity, you have your own thoughts about it. What are the possibilities going forward then?
That's a great question. I don't know if I want to over speak here. I think we have a set roadmap that I think is going to provide a ton of value for our existing clients. We're investing a ton into reporting. We have some new intelligence features coming out, so it's going to help coaches actually, based off of an athlete's data. We're going to provide recommendations in real time based on what changes athletes should make. So really, for us, it's all about how do you help coaches and athletes get value out of the data that we're capturing. The trend is we don't want to just capture data for data's sake, but we want to capture the data and then help coaches and athletes use it, and then feed that back into our planning software so that you can then actually close that feedback loop and make use of that data more easily. And I totally see that happening by bringing Perch and Catapult together. You form a more complete picture of an athlete's health, and then you're able to make decisions far more quickly and far more easily and more accurately, right? Because you have a more complete picture of the athlete.
It's a wise man who never over promises, Jacob.
Yeah, I've learned my lesson.
Slightly easier question then, in terms of obviously there's greater resources now with Perch entering the Catapult family. What's your perspective when it comes to the combined platforms of Perch and Catapult then, when we're thinking in terms of athlete safety, training optimization, and the broader availability of tech at your disposal now?
Yeah, it's I think it's a similar answer to what we just went through. I think it is going to become a much more I've just seen it just 2 months here. It's the first and foremost is do no harm. That's the same for the athlete. That's the same for the company, right? It's we're going to continue down the roadmap that we continue to go down, because there's a long list of features that we want to get to provide value to our customers. So we don't want to distract from that. But I do think there is a future vision in which bringing these two things together, it's a synergistic, right? It's not Catapult and Perch just in the same spot. It is how do we help coaches make better decisions with the data that they have? And you kind of see that all the time already. It's I'll give you an example, right, where I tell you this was from 2019, LSU football team. A guy named Jeremy Jacobs there, great friend, great coach. He mentioned they volume on the field was super high that day, right? So they were planning on coming into the weight room and actually reducing intensity. But then they saw their Perch data in real time. They say, our guys are actually moving the weight faster than we expect them to. So we're actually going to turn up the intensity a little bit. So the ability of marrying these two data sets gives you the ability to make better real-time decisions in the weight room, which is the entire purpose of capturing data in the first place, right? It's like you want to be able to make decisions in the moment. You want to be able to provide the correct amount of stimulus to both lead to the adaptation you want, but not burn your athletes out. And I think you bring these things together into a single platform. That's the only way they're able to do that, right? It's like the reverse would be if you're jumping on a force plate and that data is totally disconnected. So if that data is disconnected from the plan that you've already created, then there's no way to actually leverage the data that you've captured off that force plate to make use of it in real time, right? You have to review that after the fact and then maybe adjust your program tomorrow or the next week, as an example. So if you bring these things together, you close that feedback loop, and in an ideal world, you can better serve your athletes and your team that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And if nothing else, the future now is full of promise and certainly exciting going forward. Just wrapping up this conversation, I wonder if I can ask you to reflect on the journey you've been on from 2016 and the origination of the idea to this summer's acquisition. And in the same breath, what would be the advice you'd give to anybody else that was looking to go down a similar path?
Yeah, reflection is, man, it was a rewarding experience for sure. And we could not have gotten there without the customers who believed in us, right? There's been customers that have many issues over the years that have stuck with us because they believed in the long-term vision and the way we supported them. I could not have done it without the dedicated employees who worked extremely hard. Like, we have the best in the business employees on our team. And I think that's obvious coming in to Catapult, where everybody was like, your team is fantastic. They were great and they've hit the ground running. So we could not have done it with all that. I would say, in terms of advice that I would give others, is like, it is extremely difficult. It is a grind. We've been at this for close to 9 years now, like part-time and full-time, and serving these customers who have the highest expectations is extremely rewarding, but also very difficult. Building a hardware software company is very difficult. So when you look at that, you need to find something that you're extremely passionate about, something that you truly believe in, something that you feel like you're building that's going to make a difference in the world and the people that you're impacting. Because without that, it becomes a grind, right? You need kind of a North Star that you're working towards. That's what I'd recommend. It's a fantastic space, fantastic people. But yeah, find something you're passionate about and work towards it.
Yeah, for sure. What is it they say? Nothing that was ever worthwhile ever came easy. That's certainly the case in this instance, no doubt. For our listeners, our viewers, that you've now hooked onto what it is you do and what the future might hold, where can they follow you and Perch going forward on social media platforms?
Yeah, great question. I'm not huge on social media. You can find me on LinkedIn. So just search I try to stay away from social media as much as I can. So find me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect there. I think strength and conditioning slowly migrating in that way. But then you can find Perch platform. Our website is perch.fit. And then that, I believe, is our handle across like X and Instagram as well. And then obviously we will slowly start integrating more into Catapult. So certainly continue to check out all of Catapult's handles and website as well for more details.
Well, listen, Jacob, really appreciate your time today for this week's episode. Fascinating insight into everything that's been going on now for the best part of a decade and with the promise of more to come. So thanks for joining us on this week's edition of the Science for Sport podcast.
Yeah, really appreciate you having me.
Unlocking sports science to push the limits of human potential. This is the Science for Sport podcast.
Many thanks to Jacob Rothman for taking the time to join us on this week's Science for Sport podcast and explaining a little more to us about the workings of camera-based strength training analytics. If you found what he had to say interesting and want to find out more, you can do so by visiting our website, www.scienceforsport.com. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please do feel free to share it with a coach, a colleague, an athlete, or a friend. Remember, the more downloads we get, the easier it then becomes for us to attract top-name athletes or people at the cutting edge of their field, such as Jacob, onto the show and explain a little bit more. Well, that is just about all for this week's episode. Thanks once again for listening, and I look forward to the next time you join me on the Science for Sport podcast.
Subscribe to the Science for Sport podcast now, wherever you listen to your podcasts. For more insights, resources, and to join the Academy, visit scienceforsport.com and connect with us on social media by searching for @ScienceForSport. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.